FM Corner. I'm Danny Koontz, Director of Relationship Management for Windy City Equipment. Today on the podcast, my guest is Mark Raschkow. Mark is the CEO, Chief Growth Officer for Umbrella One. How are you, Mark?
Doing okay today, Danny.
Good. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. We're going to talk about several things related to business and other top items, but let's start with, how about a little bit about your history, career, kind of start to where you are today?
Sure. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My family, I'm pretty sure growing up that my bedtime stories were business plans. If it wasn't business, we snuck sports in there. But my father was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. My brother's an entrepreneur. My whole family was, our family business was retail. So it's funny where I've ended up. I've gone through every segment of retail. I've worked in stores. I was a commercial real estate broker, helping them doing site selection. Ultimately went on to manage shopping centers. And from that, got into the trade side of things because as a property manager, I felt the frustrations. I couldn't find the vendors I needed. And just one day finally said, you know what, let me give a go at it. And so I started a pressure washing business. I was in particular need of just basic sidewalk cleaning is kind of what started it all. So I started a business called Ace of Spray, and it was kind of a very funny niche business because all I did is serve retailers. I mean, there's when you see most pressure washing, it's residential, and now it's grown into a much bigger industry. But my career started with removing gum off of sidewalks. And from that, I went into graffiti removal, and then we did facades of big buildings. The company still exists today. It's doing really well. It's expanded tremendously. I'm not involved in the day-to-day anymore, but they've expanded nationally and they're doing great. But through that, I got exposed to the third-party supplier concept. A lot of companies started subcontracting us, and it sort of opened my eyes to the fact that in addition to being good at pressure washing, we were very good at project management. And that was a skill set needed. And obviously finding good field workers and guys to turn the wrenches is important, but knowing how to manage those projects was important. And my customers fortunately sort of enlightened me and said, hey, that's really what you should be doing, or at least be doing it in addition to what you're doing. And from there, 2011 started Umbrella One, and that got me on the path to where I am today.
And talk a little bit about Umbrella One, kind of what's the niche? What are you doing? What do you look to do?
Sure. So Umbrella One, what we say to ourselves is our goal is to make the lives of facility managers easier. Okay. So what we do is we're obsessed, I would say, in a healthy way, with discovering how do we make the facility manager's life easier by involving us than doing it themselves or using one of our industry peers. Details of how we do it, it varies from customer to customer because each customer has its own cultures, its own priorities, its own KPIs. And we sit down with people long before we start working with them to understand what all that is to make sure we can live up to that. But the quick snapshot is we do reactive general repair services. So our core trades are plumbing, electric, and handyman. And now in the last year, we've also started fire and life safety.
And you're not doing that direct with the customer. You are the third party, right?
Correct.
So we are managing it.
100%. So we have a big investment in sourcing local service providers in all the markets we work with. But yes, we are subcontracting all of our services. Our value in that role is managing those projects for them, but we are not self-performing the services.
Okay. 2 questions. You run into a lot of people that when you say you don't self-perform, it turns them off?
Oh, all the time.
The
majority. Yes.
It's funny when I was in facilities and people would talk about that and they said, do you care? No, I don't care. I'm holding you accountable. So I don't care if you do it yourself, you have people who do it, or you hire somebody to do it. At the end of the day, the responsibility that I look at is you. So it doesn't matter to me. I just never took the approach of it has to be self-performing. I didn't care. People, now I know the reasons why. People look at that and talk about every time you add a layer, you add cost. Okay, I understand that. But a really good third party who is managing and doing it for you will, if they're good, they will save you money over time. They really will.
I wouldn't argue one versus the other. I think it's the personality of the client and what their preference is. But what I like to say is similar to sort of reiterate what you said. If the quality is good, the responsiveness of if all the service aspects are good and the pricing is reasonable, and you have somebody, and this is probably most important, who's accountable. If I'm subcontracting, one of the things we make sure everyone's aware of, we're accountable for it. The warranty's with us. If I hire ABC Plumbing in Nashville, or if there's really ABC, it's arbitrary. I just said that name, but long story short, if they go out, they fix something, and days later it's not working, and we call them and they won't go back, I don't make that my client's issue. That's my issue. Right. I'm the one that found that contractor. I got to reach in my pocket and make it right. And I think that's a layer that I think has given some people pause, that not everybody does that.
Yeah, they keep pushing to, okay, we'll keep calling the contractor, trying to get them back. We're having trouble, so on. And you're going, oh, not my issue. It's really not. So,
yeah.
And my second question was, then as a former facility guy, and you are doing third party, answer the magic question. How do you deliver what you promise? Because you're not the one doing it, someone else is. And the most important thing for a facility manager to make their life easier and so on, just do what you tell me you will do, not what I demand, because that's different. I may be demanding something that's not doable, but what you are telling me you are going to do is pretty believable, should be, because you're the one giving me the info. How do you make it happen?
Well, the sentiment you just shared is echoed in every conversation I have. And I hear that whether it's self-performing or subcontracting. It's, hey, I'm so tired of someone saying someone will be there tomorrow and then they don't show up. So the way we work to combat that is we have a vendor management department, and we are always sourcing for good partners. And we start our partners small. We have them just like our clients. We let our clients start us small. We start them small. Let's give them one job here. You don't just suddenly find a guy and then overload him. Sure. And let him earn that scale, that scaled opportunity that exists in that market. But I think we also, and I don't want to say uniquely because I'm not sure what my peers do, but we view our service partners as a second set of customers. We have to take care of them. Mm-hmm. So the number one thing, don't mess with their pay. If the terms are net 30, it's net 30, and you get them paid, because you have to understand, we want to have empathy for the facility managers we work for, but you got to have empathy for us contractors also. If you're calling them at Friday night when they're having dinner with their family and asking them to get up from that table, the first thing they better know is at least I'm going to get paid.
Sure.
The second they have any questions about getting paid, they're not getting up, and they probably shouldn't, to be honest with you. So we try to do the little things we can, take care of them and make sure they don't have any headaches. And hopefully over time, they view us as an asset to their company. Hopefully we're driving their growth and we're a good partner to them. We're giving them work orders with clear communications. We're making sure that their trips to these sites are as easy to solve as possible. So.
And you said little thing, but it's actually a big thing for contractors to know when I'm being requested to do work, I will get paid to the terms of the agreement. And that seems like, well, everybody does that. No, they don't. No, they don't. And it's a huge piece, Yeah, I will get paid according to the terms that have been set up. I do my part, I do the paperwork, I do whatever I'm supposed to do to submit the bill, and I will be paid within the terms that have been agreed to. It's a huge piece, because so many people don't.
I can tell you, for the times where we've missed on that, it's usually a clerical error. But I can tell you, I'm proud of my team because I see the way they respond to it. If somebody emails us or calls us and says, "Hey, it's 35 days, whatever it is," I see the urgency they have to resolve that because that's not what we promised. We promised that 30, and somehow we didn't fulfill our promise. And it's not oh, calm down, we'll get it to you. Da, da, da. There is absolute urgency to make sure we take care of that supplier.
Sure, because they're the one that's probably dealing with that supplier day to day, and their reputation's on the line too. It's a trust factor.
Well, they're the ones who have the cost up to that point.
Sure.
They're the ones who have the labor and the materials, and they're sitting there waiting to get paid plus their profit. So you got to take care of them. And in the meantime, for all I know, we're probably giving them more work orders and like, you still haven't paid for the last one. So we got to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. What three things do you look for in a customer that you want to do service with?
Sure. Well, the first thing, the first trait I would say we identify is location count. We have an investment that we're making in the relationship. And while we don't expect any sort of scaled opportunity day one, we do want to know that if we make the upfront investment and we perform as we promise, that the opportunity to grow is there. And once again, that varies. That's kind of a general way of saying it. But the first thing is we have to know that there's a long-term scaled opportunity available to us if we live up to the promises that we make and fulfill the client's needs. The second the next factor would be partnership. And I feel like that's a word that's used a lot. Mm-hmm. But we really, really have started to realize that is a close second to the first one. We look for companies that are fully committed to developing what I would call mutual trust and collaboration. Our experience is if we communicate and align our visions and really get on the same page, the level of success we can achieve together is second to none. Sometimes our communications get limited to kind of tactical transactional exchanges. We're talking about status reports and updates, and that's important. But it's also important to make time to discuss what are the challenges our customers are facing so we understand. And even if it's not specific to us, maybe we could help solve for some of those things. If they're having headaches, tell us about it. And by the way, if we can't solve it, we have an amazing group of clients that we're happy to reach out to and sort of touch base with them and say, hey, I've got this client over here, Danny with Ruby Tuesday. He's suffering from this problem. I don't know what to do. What have you guys done? Mm-hmm. And there's no dollar amount. That's not a billable transaction. Sure. That's just us being a good partner and saying, hey, and by the way, maybe I just put you two in touch with each other and you two talk. Mm-hmm. And that's a valuable aspect of partnership. And then I would say from that, maybe the third characteristic we look for, and this is a hard one to ever know because it takes time to get there, is loyalty and that they become sort of a unintended advocate for us. Because in this business, the best sales word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm sure there are great salespeople in this industry. We don't have salespeople. I guess technically I'm the salesperson, but for us, word of mouth, that's how we're going to grow. And it can't be quantified. It's priceless. Going back to partnership, if they understand, hey, we're going to make mistakes, and it goes back to accountability, but we're accountable, and there's urgency attached to our mistakes. Well, that facility manager, they'll go to bat for us. And when we're not in the room and they hear another facility manager at RIFMA saying, hey, I have a problem in this market. I wish I knew someone good. That person will speak up for us. And we can't say thanks enough when that happens.
Sure. Sure. That's all that's very important. And I think I can remember from Ruby Tuesday days, two people would come and see me, and I would see anybody. You want to come, take the time to come to my office, you want to talk, we'll talk. It may not be an hour or two or whatever, depending on the conversation. I may not have anything for you, may not be an interest, but we're still going to do it. What would stop me really quick in that conversation and almost just it's not productive would be two things that people would say. We're better than anybody else. Okay. And my answer would be pull out the piece of paper and show me the rankings. Show me that you're better. It says on this piece of paper, you're better than anybody in the country. Let me see it. Well, of course, there isn't one. Mike, you don't know that. You don't know. Second would be, we're cheaper. You don't know what I pay. You have no idea what I pay. You can't say that. Those are two statements that you can't prove today. And that would kind of shut it down. But my number one question I did ask was, if you have a presentation, you want to show it to me, okay, I'll listen to it. We'll do it. However, here's the most important question I'm going to ask you the whole time you're here. Who do you work for? Who do you work for now in the restaurant business that does just like a Ruby Tuesday? Tell me. That's what matters, because I know those people, and I can pick, and to your point, I can pick up the phone and call them and say, ABC Plumbing was in my office today. They said they do all your work. Is that true? Or most of it, or whatever it is that they tell you. Yeah, they do a good job. That's all I need to know. That's my Google. That's Google for me. I didn't need to go look up or give them a test unit or do all that sort of stuff. I know. If it's good enough for Brinker, it was good enough for me. If it's good enough for Applebee's, it's good. It'll probably work for me. We're all in the same boat, and we all have the same problems. And that's how I learned, to another point you made, how to fix problems. Hey, I got a problem. You ever had this? And I just call another facility guy, another chain restaurant. You ever had this happen? Help me. And maybe someday I could help someone else, that I had a program. I did Hobart full service contracts on my equipment. I paid yearly fees, and if it broke 1 or 100 times, they came and fixed it, no charge. Some people thought I was nuts. Other people said, that's pretty interesting. Will you share what you're doing? Yeah. Here's what I'm doing, And if that ended up happened to be Hobart in that situation, good for them. Makes my negotiation deal better when time comes. I've helped. You gain another customer. That's a good thing. We both win. So very important in the people, and whether it's good or bad, people will know. You spoke earlier about some companies and they don't pay people on time. So that word goes. Everybody knows. And so whether it's good or bad, it helps. And then the other part you spoke about, like with a customer, most everyone looks for, and I do sales as well, customer growth. Can we get them? And then how can we grow? Grow typically, people think about as more units. That's not always how you grow. How you can grow is more services, more partnership. Maybe we are such ingrained with a customer that we go help train them on some equipment so we can cut down the number of service calls. Is that good short term? Probably not. It's good long term, really good long term, to help out. So you could do that. So it's not, everybody always just looks at growth. It's not necessarily growth in units. It's growth in services, growth in strength as a partner, to where their first phone call is always me, not somebody else. And that's growth. And they may never grow. Say they got 12 units. They may never grow another one. that's still a very valuable customer because of what you do.
Yeah, and back to the scale and unit count. The reason we look at that is also when you talk about opportunity, you got to recognize when you are putting unlike customers against each other and be honest about where you're going to put your priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure, once again, we start from a small position with people. We don't come in and say, oh, it needs to be X amount of units or we're not interested.
Right.
But as you grow, the guy, with the 12 units, those 12 units mean the world to that person. And if you're sitting there and you pairing him against a guy who's got 1,000 units, you just have to be honest with yourself. Are you going to treat them equally?
Sure.
And you could treat them fairly, but are you going to treat them equally?
Very good.
And we have an honesty with ourselves about how that plays out. And that's why I said, if we're going to make the investment, because like I said, there's a lot of upfront investment before we ever talk about working with people. You just got to know, hey, if the opportunities to scale there, we've limited resources, and I'm talking about my people, forget our service partners.
Sure.
I have people that are trained that I feel it takes a certain investment of time to get them to a level that our customers need them to be at. I can't just go hire someone off the street and get them there really fast. So I've got to know that if I put that person, that my employee can grow with that company and that opportunity. And I guess I'm sort of going all over the place.
No,
I want to clarify when you said, I don't want to insinuate earlier that somebody with 12 units wasn't important.
Sure. No, they are. But your key to that point is right. Can you handle a 12-unit chain as opposed to 1,000 with the same equality and so on? And it's very difficult. The only way you can try to do that is if both are considered VIP, which if it's been a long-term customer at 12, they probably are, and 1,000 is. The only way is that it suddenly doesn't become the customer, it becomes the service request they're asking about. Like in Phoenix and Tucson for us, air conditioning, walk-in cooler freezers. That's number one and 1A. It doesn't matter who it is, as long as it's a current customer. It doesn't really matter who, those are the P1s. And then you try to take them as you get them, and that doesn't always work, but you try. That's the only way, because if you're in the middle of summer and you're at 1,000 restaurants and 12, the 12 gets left behind. The only way to try to make it right is just, we're not going to look at the customer, we're going to look at the issue. And if these are our P1s, everybody gets slotted when they come, and that's kind of how you try to do it. But it is difficult. I will agree with you. Very tough.
Yeah, no. Look, we're resource allocation is something we're constantly aware of. Mm-hmm. Once again, my employees, and then on top of it, our service network, and we constantly have to be honest with ourselves. We want to grow, but can we take people on? And sometimes when we take people on, we have to say, hey, if this opportunity is here, we have to look at our current customer base and be fair to them and say, if we take these people on, can we still maintain the same level of service we've been providing customer A who's been with us for a while? And if not, then we have to make a decision. And that's where factors about growth and opportunity come in, and things you got to think about. And sometimes you're right. If they've been a VIP stellar customer, they may be the smaller customer, but you're certainly not going to turn your back on them.
No, absolutely not.
But you can't just keep stacking customers on top of customers and living with the same amount of resources. You can't. There's no way to say I'm going to deliver the same level of service. It's just an honest facts of life, and thankfully, I think we're pretty good at being honest with ourselves about it.
Well, you have to evaluate your customer base periodically and look and see who you have. And there becomes sometimes, as companies grow or different, the way they're looking, what they want their customer base to be, there could be someone that 5 years ago was a really good customer. Today, maybe the company's outgrown them or whatever. And first you have to acknowledge that And second, you have to have a conversation with them about it. You know, that it just won't be what it was. And here are the reasons why. And give them the opportunity to say, that's okay, we'll stick, or we'll look at something else. Give them the option. It's a hard conversation. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but you also have to be fair, and we can't continue to deliver at the time frames that we had done in the past. Okay. I mean, like you said, you only got so many people. We only got so many techs. We only got so many hours a day that we can run techs unless we're going to kill them. And that's insane. There's only X amount of time. That means there's only X amount of calls we can do. Well, add and subtract, and there you are, and it's tough. It's hard because you want to say yes to everybody, but you can't. Cannot.
Let's say, so to touch on that, if I could keep going, we in 2023 started January 1st with, I would say, somewhere around 240 customers. And we made a goal of actually shrinking our customer base. We finished in December with 70 because we realized we were saying yes to way too many people.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it was working out. Actually, it wasn't due to a negative event that happened. It was just us looking in the mirror and saying, we felt the stress, and we felt at any given moment something could happen, and not on a large scale, but we didn't want to even have it happen on a small scale.
Sure.
We actually sort of paused our growth, said, let's evaluate our customers, and we reached out to people and said, hey, we're sorry. Here's the reasons why. We're not turning our back on you. We'll give you 90 to 120 days. We'll help you find an alternate supplier if you need it. There's lots of good people in our industry who could step in and help. But what we found, and we didn't cut headcounts, I should mention. I mean, this wasn't a cost-cutting measure. We kept all of our employees.
Sure.
But what we wanted to do was make sure we were taking care of people the way we promised we will. I sit in front of people and make a lot of grandiose statements about how great we are. And I want to make sure our team's fulfilling that. And when I started to look at what was going on, I wasn't saying no to anybody. I was saying yes to everybody. I had to change that. So we finished the year, like I said, with about 70, 75 customers. And we're still looking to pare it down because, like I said, it takes a while to train people to do what we need them to do. And we want to continue to deliver what we think is premium service. But we're just not able to do it for everybody.
Sure. So. And it's tough. And for people who sell and so on, it's usually the answer is yes. Will you do bits? Sure. That's the answer because that's what you're kind of, that's what sales is. But it's really not. It's, would we like to do it? Yes. Can we do it? And can we succeed at it? Because doing it and succeeding at it is two different things. You can be marginal or halfway decent, but not good. Over time, that catches you. And that's why it can't just be yes. And then you jump in and realize, well, we can't do that. And that's how it gets caught, is because it's get them in and we'll figure out a way. Well, at some point you can't. And you just gotta, you gotta be honest and you gotta let people know what they're doing. So good point.
And I've grown to appreciate on the facility on the client side, let's call it, the challenges with onboarding because people don't realize, hey, I'm going to make a commit to you. I'm going to onboard you. I'm going to get you into our system, and I'm going to start to depend on you. Once again, I don't to whatever scale it is, whether it's small test market or a larger program. But it is funny. I've grown to appreciate why there's a hesitancy because I can only imagine how many times people have onboarded somebody that just let them down because they were running around saying yes to everybody. And they had the best intentions, but the 50 units you gave them, well, the next week they got another 50 units from another guy and another 100 units from another guy. And all of a sudden it grew really fast, maybe through multiple customers. But if they're not monitoring, once again, the allocation of their resources, they can get over their skis really quick.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely. And then you're not delivering and everybody's frustrated. The people, the customer, the end user, everybody is not getting what they want. And it really starts from where you have it out to them. You know, you're not getting it done because you can't. And those hard conversations, sometimes you just have to have them, and you have to look at what can we do and what can we not. And I know as speaking in sales and onboarding customers, I'm going to give you this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. That sounds really good. And I go to a leadership meeting and say, here's who I got on the vine. That might happen. It might not happen. You know, I mean, telling me to onboard them so that they can give me all the volume sounds great. That doesn't mean I get it. You know, oh, plans changed. Oh, I found out we had another vendor who did air conditioning, so we decided to leave it alone. I mean, those things come up after the fact. And here you are who have said, here's what we can do, and here's what they're going to give us, and then they don't. And now you're the one that kind of, people are looking at you going, hey, did you do your homework? Well, yeah, I think so, but didn't happen. So we're about out of time today, Mark. I want everybody to please stay tuned. We're going to have a part 2 of our conversations. Mark and I continue talking about business and a few pieces related to Umbrella One and how they go to market, things like that. So please stay tuned for part 2 of FM Corner next week. Thank you so much.